We've all felt it. That moment after the mistake. Do you own it or do you dig in? That powerful instinct to justify, deflect, and double down. Whispering, just push harder. Keep going. It will fix itself. It's also dangerously seductive. It's also a deeply human reflex. But let's be clear, it's often disastrous. A speech at a gala, a legendary football coach in a relationship with a 23-year-old, and a veteran ESPN prognosticator who went nuclear after a Colorado quarterback plummeted to the 5th round. It's an instinct to protect ego, but it's the wrong one. Whether you're trending or just trying to save face in a group chat, the rules of reputation are the same. Welcome back to the PR Breakdown, your weekly deep dive into the PR disasters, image meltdowns, and the reputation fails hiding in plain sight. I'm your host, Molly McPherson, and each week I'll dissect some of the headlines, spot the cracks in the spin, and ask, how did this go so wrong? And boy, do I have one this week. Because let's be honest, everyone, life is PR. And we could all use a little crisis management. Let's get into it. Did you happen to watch the interview on CBS Mornings with former NFL coach, now UNC coach, Bill Belichick? Now in my home, Patriots coach, he was revered. And for a reason, he's second in all-time victories and he holds a record 6 Super Bowl wins. I'm betting most of you watched the Super Bowl wins, but not the interview, at least the full interview on CBS. But I am certain you heard about it. If you did not watch the interview, would you be surprised to learn that Belichick has a new book coming out? I had no idea. The book titled The Art of Winning, Lessons from My Life in Football. There is a reason why that title fell way below the headline, because there's only one story about Bill Belichick that everyone is talking about. This is what you missed. Homage to the hoodie. Belichick was wearing a navy sweatshirt, had holes all over it, a nod to his father, who was an assistant coach for the Naval Academy football team. Very on brand for him. He also talked about Tom Brady, and there was some commentary on the owner of the Patriots, Robert Kraft.
Do you feel like you were treated with dignity and respect when you were let go by Robert Kraft?
Yeah, well, it was a mutual decision for us to part ways.
He said fired.
It was a mutual decision.
Oof, that's harsh. But here's the part that you definitely heard about.
You have Jordan right over there. Everybody in the world seems to be following this relationship. They've got an opinion about your private life. It's got nothing to do with them, but they're invested in it. How do you deal with that?
Never been too worried about what everybody else thinks. Just try to do what I feel like is best for me and what's right.
How did you guys meet?
Not talking about this.
No?
No.
Now, let's be clear. This isn't a morality podcast. Love is love. But when the internet gets their hands on a story like this, resistance is futile. Now, I get it. Belichick's brand is that he gives 0 Fs. He famously hates interviews. He wears crappy sweatshirts, bad wardrobe, totally on brand. Now, does Bill Belichick owe us an explanation on his girlfriend? No. But now he's doubling down on his relationship with Jordan Hudson. The guy is entitled to privacy, but the problem is he's someone who's still in the spotlight, who needs a little oomph behind him. After all, he has a book. He's no longer in the NFL. He's coaching at UNC. Bill Belichick still needs a lot of that juice behind him. He needs that image that he is this legendary coach who's now decided to take a step into college. The money that is going into the UNC program has to be backed up with image and reputation. But when there is something that is impacting his reputation like this, well, then you got to come through and explain this relationship. When it is someone who is nearly 50 years younger than Bill Belichick, Jordan Hudson graduated from Bridgewater State not that long ago. When they met back in 2021, she was 19 years old. She's 23 years old. Like, she's the age of my daughter. If my daughter were to come home with Bill Belichick, you don't think that as a parent, as anyone who would know her, would have an opinion? Of course, everyone in their lives have opinion. So why wouldn't the public have one as well? They're all over social media. Listen to how Bill explains it.
You joined InstaFace, as you put it. I love that. There's some great pictures of you and Jordan where you're a fisherman and she's a mermaid. It's charming. It's a different side of you. What's the reaction been like?
What's it been like?
To have these different sort of photos. There's another one where you're doing, I know you're not into meditation or yoga or Pilates. You're balancing Jordan on your feet and she's doing kind of the Titanic pose.
Yeah, so I'm on some of those social media platforms, but I honestly don't follow them.
Let's say.
I enjoy football. I enjoy the whole process of it.
Jordan calls herself a social media influencer. Sorry. But if you're a coach, a 70-something coach, and you are now trying to rebrand yourself as a college coach extraordinaire, and you want to sell this book on the art of football, I think the public has every single right to start asking questions. When Bill Belichick does this, is that really going to make the story go away? He's putting a lot of faith into his girlfriend. Next, the setup. At the 2025 Time 100 Gala, Blake Lively stood alongside her mother and delivered a speech that walked a tightrope between personal revelation of her mother and calculated omission. Take a listen to part of the speech.
I have so much to say about the last 2 years of my life, but tonight is not the forum. She is a survivor of the worst crime someone can commit against a woman. My mom never got justice from her work acquaintance who attempted to take her life when she was the mother of 3 young kids years before I was born. It's not for us to have shame. It's for them. Never underestimate a woman's ability to endure pain.
That was Blake Lively framing her mother's survival of a traumatic attack as a bit of an emblem of female resilience, while sidestepping direct mention of her own ongoing legal battle with her former co-star Justin Baldoni, whom she accused of sexual harassment and retaliation. Is that case still moving forward? Oh, yes, it is. So every move that we see from Blake Lively and her husband, Ryan Reynolds, you've heard me talk about them in the past many times on this podcast and on social media. The reason is because they don't stop. These PR moves are another version of doubling down on a victim narrative, that Blake Lively is 100% the victim. This was a speech that shifted the room. Revealing that her mom had survived an attack by a work acquaintance before Blake was born, she spoke of her mother's, quote, undeserved shame, end quote, and the power of hearing another survivor's story, a moment that she implied saved her mother's life. Quote, never underestimate a woman's ability to endure pain, end quote. Her voice was sending a very clear message, and it was no longer about her mother's pain. It was very much about Blake Lively's pain, because the unspoken context, that speech landed in the middle of Blake Lively's very public legal battle with It Ends With Us co-star Justin Baldoni, whom she has accused of sexual harassment. And he has denied the claims and countersued for defamation, though she never mentions Baldoni by name. She never does, nor does her husband, Ryan Reynolds. They always find ways to reference that time in her life. In her speech, the reference, quote, the last 2 years of my life, end quote, hung very heavy in that speech. Now, in the audience, if you watch the video, my goodness, I did a live on YouTube last week where I watched the video with everyone online. You can find it on YouTube right now. Just head to my channel, youtube.com/@MollyMcPherson. The live is right up front. I break down watching step by step of that speech. And I had noted during it the people behind her. It was very similar to watching Ryan Reynolds at the SNL 50th anniversary, the people behind him. Everyone just stares at them in disbelief. There isn't anyone nodding in approval, either in the SNL piece or in this Time 100 address that Blake Lively was giving. Everyone is a mix between shell-shocked, confused, incredulous. Nobody is supporting them in the background. What made this speech even more problematic, not just for me, but for a lot of people online, Time 100's list of the most influential people of 2025, I was shocked, not surprised that Blake Lively would be on the list. There's certainly a number of people on that list who deserve to be on it. They are change makers. Then the rest of the list is compiled of people who just made news, and that's what makes them influential. So I think it's a mix between editorial at Time Magazine, but also publicists, heavy-handed ones, looking at you, Blake and Ryan's publicist, getting them in that type of a room. That every person who was nominated for this honor had a blurb online. The person writing Blake's write-up was Sherilyn Ifill. She's a civil rights lawyer. She's also the cousin of journalist Gwen Ifill. She discussed in her piece Lively's attention to school, education, learning about the world and about history, also her philanthropy. And a lot of skeptics, like myself, noted some of the irony there. Donating money around 2019, 2020 was a very Hollywood thing to do. Also, her connection to the NAACP could time to the negative outcome from her wedding. Her and Ryan Reynolds were married at the Boone Plantation in Charleston, South Carolina. You could not be surprised that a multi-million-dollar A-list celebrity couple getting married on a plantation in an area that literally is right next to slave quarters. I know this because I've been there. That's where the weddings are, right next to the slave quarters. I think it's very difficult to be at a wedding on that plantation without noting that. So what did they do? Likely is donate money to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. And that's where Sherilyn Ifill came in. Now, one would think Lively's speech might be about that. Had nothing to do with that. She didn't even mention Ifill. She didn't even mention the write-up. Instead, she wanted to talk about the pain of her mother. She leveraged her mother's story for her own story. And then the optics, hours after the gala, Lively and Ryan Reynolds post a jovial selfie. Because now we've moved on to Ryan's investment. It's an emotional compartmentalization, or worse, even worse, it's just performative advocacy. Blake Lively got a lot of grief, and frankly, it's well-deserved. Blake, and with Ryan by your side, they will refuse to admit any legal maneuverings against Baldoni and that their team made a mistake. They're going to keep going down. All right, next, we had the NFL draft, and there was one story that really took over, and that was the fate of Colorado quarterback Shedeur Sanders. He, of course, is the son of famed NFL player Deion Sanders, who's also the coach. There was a lot of interest in the NFL draft, which the NFL, they love that because Taylor and Travis aren't talking points anymore. So let's bring this narrative in the mix. But there was one veteran ESPN analyst who's been long celebrated for his draft takes.
This past weekend, Mel Kiper bordered on imploding in on himself like a dying star over Shedeur Sanders. He had Shedeur rated as his number one overall quarterback, and then Shedeur fell to the 5th round. And I don't know how upset Deion was, but it pales in comparison to how upset Mel Kiper was.
Mel Kiper faced a lot of scrutiny during this draft because he was such an advocate for Sanders. Kiper had Sanders ranked number 5 overall. even ahead of the top pick, Cam Ward. He doubled down on Sanders. And there were a lot of on-air eruptions. He said the NFL has been clueless for 50 years evaluating QBs. This is disgusting. He received a lot of backlash because he refused to acknowledge Sanders' documented flaws. There was an assistant coach who came out, not on the record, it was an anonymous source, and it was on background, talking about why Sanders is a questionable pick, that he has questionable decision-making, off-field distractions, that he's arrogant. And there were people and colleagues who pushed back on him, saying the NFL teams had legitimate concerns about him. Meanwhile, the Cleveland Browns get Sanders at a steep discount, which is what they called it. In addition to the backlash, it also undercuts Kiper's narrative and exposes a gap between his evaluation prowess and the league-wide skepticism. Many people applaud his passion, which is great. Everyone loves passion in sports, but there are a lot of scouts out there and a lot of fans who criticized his blurred objectivity. Someone just digging their heels in. And when you refuse to give in, it becomes a referendum on one's own credibility. Looking at these three stories, the mistake, Bill Belichick refuses to address the one thing that makes him interesting right now. This is what I would tell him to do. Lean into the curiosity about her. Bill Belichick doubling down on not wanting to give in to the public's curiosity and the media's curiosity about his girlfriend. Instead, he'll talk more about Robert Kraft, someone he doesn't even talk about. He avoids it completely. It's not even in his book. Yet he talked more about Robert Kraft than he did about his girlfriend. And he lets his influencer girlfriend, Jordan, dominate the spotlight while he tries to remain silent. But he's not, because he's on a publicity tour. The fallout, it's the Streisand effect in full swing. If you're not familiar with it, yes, it's that Streisand. It's Barbra Streisand. Years ago, when there were photographs of her home online and she was trying to find legal remedies for no one talking about it online anymore, well, guess what happened? Everybody talked about her property online and posted photos. That's why when you hear of the Streisand effect, it's a very bad thing. This girlfriend is going to be a part of his permanent record now. It's going to be a part of his reputational legacy. Dating someone much younger than you, okay, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But to try and dismiss it as a talking point, and again, it's like looking down at the public for being curious. No, Bill, everyone's curious. The psychology, ego projection. I'm Bill Belichick. I don't have to explain myself. The illusion of control, believing silence equals power, when it actually creates more speculation. And the audience capture. His brand was built on no distraction. But now he and his girlfriend are the distractions. The lesson? You can't do your job if you're too busy pretending the job hasn't changed. If Belichick fails at UNC, it won't just be about the X's and the O's. It will be about a legend who forgot that even icons have to adapt. Blake Lively. The mistake, using her mother's trauma to deflect from her legal battle with Justin Baldoni. The double down, Lively leveraged her mother's pain as her own pain and framed criticism as cruelty. The internet is split, but there are more people who see through Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. They are losing reputational goodwill. Every time they show up, they make it worse. They keep doubling down on advocacy when it's really more like exploitation. The psychology, moral licensing. She's saying, I'm a good person because I support survivors, so my motives can't be questioned. And also the Streisand effect. Every time Blake and Ryan ignore anything about Justin Baldoni and the feud, makes it the only thing that people discuss. And the lesson, if you're in a PR hole, stop digging. Mel Kiper Jr., all right, he flubbed a pick. He called someone a top 5 pick when there were glaring flaws with the player. The double down, blaming the entire NFL when Sanders fell round after round after round. The fallout, Other analysts question if Kiper cared more about being right than being accurate. The psychology there, confirmation bias. Kiper ignored stats that didn't fit his narrative. Also, ego projection. Saying the league is wrong is much easier than saying I am wrong. He let emotion take over analysis. The common thread in all three cases, silence isn't strategy. When Bill Belichick ignores his new reality, he risks looking out of touch. When Blake Lively ignores her PR crisis, she only makes it worse. And when Mel Kiper ignores his bad evaluation, it changes his legacy. Why do smart people make dumb defensive moves? All three examples fell into the same trap. The sunk cost fallacy, I've invested too much to quit now. Cognitive dissonance, if I'm wrong, what does that say about me? And this idea of audience capture. My fans expect this version of me. All Belichick needs to do is just acknowledge the relationship. Acknowledge that it's a little bit different. Lively really should address the case head on. That would go a long way in repairing her image. Every event, every interview where she doesn't address it directly, she's harming her brand along with her husband, Ryan Reynolds. And Kiper, all he needs to say is something simple. Here's where I misjudge Sanders. People are going to admire it. The real takeaway, the quicker you face your mistake, the quicker you control the narrative. Whether you're a legendary coach, an A-lister, or a draft guru, there's only one thing more damaging than being wrong. It's pretending you aren't. Or as Belichick once put it, do your job. And sometimes the job is simply saying, I was wrong. That's it for this week. You can find my extended commentary and weekly media breakdowns on my Substack, prbreakdown.media, or you can follow me there on Substack at Molly McPherson. Members of my Substack have access to exclusive workshops for comms and PR pros, more off-the-record takes, and exclusive lives. You're going to get the PR updates you won't find anywhere else. Thanks so much for listening. Bye for now.